Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
At that moment, Nigel's phone rang, after which he took a look and saw that it was his mother calling. Immediately, he thought about asking her to help him explain last night's incident, so he turned to Queenie and notified her, "It's my mom. Why don't I let her explain everything to you?" Queenie was taken aback for a moment. Though she was angry, she did not intend to let an elder explain the situation, so she hurriedly refused. There's no need for Mrs. Manson to explain anything. However, it was too late because Nigel had answered the call and put it on speaker. "Yes, Mom." "Nigel, you better have a good explanation about your relationship with Julian. Did you refuse to get into a relationship because of him? I saw you keeping your distance from Ingrid and even ignoring her. Are you not interested in women? Tell me, please. Are you going to let the Manson family end with you?" Brenda screamed her question from the other end. Queenie was at a loss for words, and Nigel did not fare any better either. The two kept silent for a few seconds before he seized the chance to pipe up. "Mom, I told you. Stop arranging blind dates for me because I already have someone I like." "Is the person you like Julian?" Brenda felt like her world was about to fall apart. "Mom, I'm straight." Nigel was speechless at his mom's reply. "Did you stay the night at Julian's place? The paparazzi even took pictures and posted them online. Now, the whole internet is talking about this matter and your dad is so angry that he almost got a heart attack." Brenda continued to interrogate her son angrily. It was then that Queenie finally understood everything as Brenda's words clearly explained what had transpired last night. As Nigel had stated, it was a blind date where he was indifferent toward Ingrid. Then, he placed his phone before Queenie and moved his lips to beg silently, "Save me. Talk to my mom." Although Queenie was still angry, she grabbed Nigel's phone and used her sweet voice to greet Brenda. "Hello, Mrs. Manson. I'm Nigel's girlfriend, Queenie Silverstein." As soon as Brenda heard a woman's clear voice coming from her phone, she was stunned. "Are you really Nigel's girlfriend?" "Yes, we are currently dating." Meanwhile, Nigel was looking at Queenie with a gentle gaze while informing his mom, "Mom, I told you I have a girlfriend, but you didn't believe me last night. Nigel, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and deal with the rumors online. What nonsense are they talking about?" As Brenda brought the matter up, Nigel was so infuriated by the paparazzi's audacity to use him for clout that he thought they had to be looking for death. "Mom, don't worry. I'll sue that company until they go bankrupt. Don't forget to bring Miss Silverstein home for a meal." "All right, Mom. I'll make the arrangement soon." After saying that, he hung up and stared intently at Queenie, trying to make out from her pretty little face whether she was still angry or not. Meanwhile, she felt embarrassed as she played with her hair. Have I been overthinking this entire situation? It was obvious that her imagination had run wild last night and almost destroyed her good impression of Nigel. All the hateful titles like scumbag, playboy, and even scoundrel had been used on him. Now that things had cleared up, she felt too apologetic to face him. "Queenie, Julian and I have been misunderstood, and I'm in dire need of you to help clear my name." "So, you and Julian," she turned to stare at him with inquisitive eyes. Nigel's handsome face fell as he reached over to the driver's seat and cupped her face in his palms. Then, he fiercely punished those small lips that housed her sharp tongue. "You have to bear the consequences of doubting me." In the meantime, Bonnie stuck her head out from the cluster of trees she was hiding behind, wondering why Queenie's car was still parked there. Why hasn't she chased Nigel away? What are they doing inside the car? With that thought, she adjusted her body to peek from another angle, which just happened to be the car's window. Behind it was an inappropriate scene. Indeed, Queenie and Nigel were locked in a passionate kiss. Bonnie's pupils dilated at that very scene as they were slowly tinted by jealousy. What's this? Did they reconcile? Back inside the car, Queenie was out of breath from the kiss, after which Nigel released her from his embrace as her face turned crimson until the end of her ears. She pushed him and complained, "Nigel, have you had enough?" Nigel's phone rang again. This time, it was from Julian. Subsequently, he put it on speaker mode. "Hey, Julian." On the other end of the phone, Julian's voice sounded like a volcanic eruption. "That damned paparazzi, how could they write something like this?" "I'll deal with it." Nigel had already calmed down. "My company has already sued them. I'm fine with this incident, but I'm worried that it might affect you and Miss Silverstein's relationship. You better hurry up and explain this incident to her. She's sitting right beside me." "Greetings, Miss Silverstein. I'm Julian Gilmore. Nigel and I grew up together and were very close friends. Most importantly, we're straight as a pole, so please don't misunderstand our relationship." As expected from a person who made a living through acting, his explanation was particularly on point. Bursting into laughter, Queenie replied, "Mr. Gilmore, it's all good." When Nigel realized that she was amused by another man, he felt a little jealous. "Julian, I'll hang up first. I have something to do." After saying that, he decisively hung up the call. Meanwhile, Queenie's gloomy mood had vanished like rain clouds after a storm. She then asked him, "Have you eaten breakfast?" "My stomach is empty," he answered, sounding aggrieved. "How about I treat you to breakfast?" She offered generously. "I'm sorry for last night. I vow to not lie to you ever again." Immediately after saying that, he made a vowing gesture. "I'm willing to swear with my life." Then, Queenie covered his lips with her hand. "I believe you." Grabbing her hand, Nigel placed a kiss on the back of it. "As I anticipated, my darling is concerned about me." "Who's your wife?" "You, of course. We're not even engaged yet." "That's just a matter of time." He was very confident in that. When Queenie looked at the time, she immediately pushed the man beside her and urged, "I need to rush to a meeting." "Get out." "I won't. I'm going to the company with you." "But your car is here." "I'll hail a cab back here to retrieve it later." Subsequently, Nigel fastened his seatbelt quickly. He wanted to stay with her longer so that he could lessen the guilt he felt for her. This incident was all because of his stupidity, and if he had told her the truth back at the restaurant, he would have been able to invite her over and introduce her to his mother. Had that ever crossed his mind, all of this would not have happened. "How about we do it this way? We'll take your car, and you'll be my driver for the day, sending me on and off work." "Sure, that won't be a problem. I'll even pay for your entire day's meals." Nigel wished nothing more than to stick himself onto her like gum. Queenie burst out laughing while watching his enthusiasm, especially when he decided to follow Bonnie's ridiculous request to kneel and ask for her apology. No matter what, she was very satisfied with his performance today. The two alighted from the car and walked out of the courtyard. On the other hand, Bonnie had already returned to the balcony upstairs and was peeking at them from behind the curtains. When she saw the two getting off Queenie's car and ascended Nigel's car instead, she was shocked for a moment and stomped her feet in frustration. How can they reconcile so quickly? The worries she had before finally returned. If she could not break Queenie and Nigel apart, her future situation would become highly problematic. Also, watching Queenie head to the family's company every day gave her a sense that the company would end up in Queenie's hands in the future, so that made her very anxious as well. After Queenie descended Nigel's car at Silverstein Enterprise, he wanted to head inside with her when she refused, saying that she needed to attend a meeting soon and had no time to entertain him. If that's the case, I'll find a nearby cafe to spend my time at. I'll be waiting near the entrance of your company at 11:30 a.m., he proposed. Nothing beats making my girlfriend happy for the whole day. With that, Queenie subsequently went up to her office while Nigel found himself a nearby hotel to rest at and deal with the hilarious rumor regarding him and Julian. He was determined to have those two reporters make a public apology. Not only that, the media company that published the article had to compensate for his and Julian's losses, as well as never appear on the internet again. Ever. However, the one who suffered the most from this was Julian. For many years, he had kept himself rumor-free, and the first romantic rumor he had was with a renowned, rich young master like Nigel. Not only did that cause an uproar among his fans, but his anti-fans and rival companies were also all eagerly trying to ruin his reputation. Due to this, his company sent out several legal letters and made an example of the more active anti-fans. His lawsuits were not just for show, as those whom he had sued were all convicted, which was why all the anti-fans and rival companies became quiet after a few hours, as they lacked the courage to offend Julian anymore. One had to know that Julian was not just a male celebrity. He was the second heir of Gilmore Corporation, had uncountable assets, and was a genuine nobleman. Meanwhile, Queenie exited her office and walked toward the meeting room with a cup of coffee in her hand. Since Brandon had heard from his wife about Queenie's relationship problems with Nigel, he was worried about her mood today. However, he looked over and saw his high-spirited daughter in her seat, seemingly in a good mood. As such, he could not help but wonder, does Queenie not have feelings for Nigel anymore? Did they break up just after one night? Then, he recalled the news he had just received, which was regarding the Manson Group. Allegedly, Manson Group had just withdrawn an outsourcing service, which was landscape maintenance, and it happened that Silverstein Enterprise had been developing a landscape construction project in recent years. In other words, their two projects were compatible for collaboration. However, all of Manson Group's outsourcing services were something every large corporation competed to obtain. Companies like Silverstein Enterprise, which had just begun their landscape construction services, would not stand a chance against their competition. Brandon only found out about this project from the client last night and had gone home thinking he could use his daughter's connections to get it. Yet, he did not expect to come home and hear from his wife that his daughter had gotten into a fight with Nigel and that they were about to break up. Therefore, he woke up early today and contacted many people just for this project. At this point, he had almost lost all hope. If Nigel truly broke up with Queenie, their chances of landing this project would be slim to none. All right. Let's begin our meeting. Brandon coughed lightly before announcing, making all the higher-ups in the room quiet down. Meanwhile, Queenie was a little distracted by her situation with Nigel. It seemed like it was true when they said quarreling could make a couple grow fonder of each other. I just got news about a cooperative project last night, and it's one of Manson Group's outsourcing landscape projects. Although we have many competitors, we should still give it a try and see if we can succeed, Brandon suggested. Mr. Silverstein, our chances are slim. According to what I know, every renowned landscaping company is competing for this project. What's more, we don't have the advantage to compete with them, one of the higher-ups spoke up sullenly. That's right. Although it'll be very advantageous for us to win this project, we can't do anything about it. After listening for a bit, Queenie turned to Brandon. Dad, when did they announce this project? Why didn't I know about this? I only found out about this last night, so I'm asking everyone to come up with a strategy. Queenie, you don't have to be involved in this. We're just going to give it a shot without harboring much hope of landing it. Mr. Silverstein, I think we're just wasting our efforts, so why don't we just give up on this matter? He's right. Why should we waste our efforts on something impossible? How do you know we won't succeed if we don't try? Queenie felt confident while looking at the gloomy faces of the higher-ups. Miss Silverstein, it's not that we aren't confident, but... Leave this matter to me, she stated firmly. Queenie, I think we should forget about this. I don't want to put you in a difficult situation. Brandon sighed. If getting this project meant Queenie would have to disregard her dignity and be hurt again after confronting Nigel, he would rather give up completely on it. Dad, believe me. I will successfully land this project, she told her dad. Meanwhile, the higher-ups in the room thought that she was such a good scapegoat to take on the impossible task. Of course, she would not get scolded even if she failed, anyway. Miss Silverstein, you have our full support. Of course. Miss Silverstein, we trust that you will succeed. Queenie pursed her lips and smiled. We can certainly get this project. I have such a strong connection, so why not use it? At that point, she was thinking like a businesswoman, and helping her dad get more business was something a daughter should do. Meanwhile, Brandon admired his daughter's courage for being willing to disregard her personal relationship for the betterment of the company. He patted her shoulder and encouraged her, Queenie, just do your best. It'd be great if you succeed, but it wouldn't matter even if you didn't. She nodded and answered, Don't worry, Dad. I will get this project for you no matter what it takes. At that, the higher-ups under the stage could not help but praise Queenie for that. Bold. Miss Silverstein's work ethic is similar to that of a warrior. Ring. Ring. Her phone suddenly rang, and she took a look at it before picking it up. Hey, what's the matter? It's too boring at the cafe, so I thought I should just head up to your office. I'm at the reception counter. Where's your office? Nigel's voice sounded from the receiver. Surprised, Queenie instructed him, have the receptionist bring you to the third-floor meeting room. You want me to rest inside the meeting room? That sounds good as well. I'll be there in a minute, he answered happily. After hanging up, she notified Brandon, Dad, I just invited Nigel here. We can talk to him in person later. A shocked Brandon was taken aback by her words. What? Did you invite young Master Nigel here? Now? Yes. He'll be here in a minute. Once she finished, she turned to Joseph Hummer, who was in charge of landscape construction. Mr. Hummer, the president of Manson Group, is almost here. You can tell him all about our company's strengths later. At that point, Joseph was left speechless, and so were all of the higher-ups in the meeting room. The president of the Manson Group is personally coming to our meeting room to discuss the project? While looking at the room of stunned higher-ups, Queenie could not hold back her smile. Don't be nervous. He's my boyfriend and is fairly easy to talk to. That explanation shocked the crowd once again. No wonder Miss Silverstein is so confident. It turns out the project belongs to her boyfriend. Who would be able to get the project if not her? It was then someone knocked on the meeting room door, followed by the voice of the receptionist. Sir, please head inside. Nigel originally thought he was coming to the meeting room to see Queenie and take a short rest. Clearly, he was not expecting to receive such a shock right after stepping inside. Do I have the wrong room? Why is there a meeting here? Nigel, come in. Queenie rose to her feet and beckoned him over. Seeing her there, Nigel immediately relaxed and entered the room. Then, he pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. Just as he took a seat, he noticed Brandon sitting beside her and quickly got up to greet him politely, Mr. Silverstein. Brandon chuckled and reciprocated passionately, Nigel, have a seat and make yourself at home. After Nigel sat down, he felt everyone's eyes on him. In actuality, the crowd did not expect the president of the Manson Group to be so young. He looks to be about 25 to 26 years old at most. So, he's young and remarkably handsome. Miss Silverstein has good taste in men. Mr. Manson, the matter goes like this. I heard your company has a landscape outsourcing project that is looking for investors, and our company is very interested in it. Queenie explained the situation to Nigel before turning to Joseph. Mr. Hummer, please elaborate on our company's strength in that area. Albeit nervous, Joseph maintained his composure and began introducing the company's strength after organizing his thoughts. Meanwhile, Nigel blinked his eyes, obviously having no idea what was happening. After all, Silverstein Enterprise only needed to obtain his consent to become the investor in that project. However, he still listened to Joseph's introduction attentively. Mr. Manson, what do you think of our company's credentials? Are we up to your standards? Queenie asked him deliberately. While applauding, Nigel nodded without hesitation. I have no problem with your introduction, which perfectly fits our requirements. As such, I'll appoint your company as the contractor for that project. The meeting room instantly descended into an uproar. They never expected that they could take down a project worth many billions so easily. It was beyond their imaginations. Nigel, you don't have to agree so quickly. You can take a good look at our capabilities before making that decision, Brandon said out of guilt since he thought it was Queenie who had been pressuring him. Smiling, Nigel looked at the highly capable woman beside him and assured him, Mr. Silverstein, I highly approve of your company and believe that you do have the capability to rise to the occasion. It won't matter if you don't because we're all family. Dad, I'll leave the rest of the meeting to you and bring Nigel to my office. Sure, go ahead. Brandon nodded, not expecting them to reconcile just after one night. Once Nigel and Queenie left, cheers filled the entire meeting room. The higher-ups were elated and more certain about Silverstein Enterprise's future development. With such a huge backer, Silverstein Enterprise would definitely have an optimistic destiny. On the other side, there were still traces of a young woman's aura inside Queenie's office. Seeing the blue couch, Nigel comfortably sat down while she poured him a cup of water before joining him. How about I treat you to lunch? To thank you for giving my dad such a huge project. She offered. With narrowed eyes, Nigel reasoned, he's your dad now and he will be my father-in-law soon. We're going to be family, so why the formalities? A blushing Queenie had no choice but to accept his justification. Indeed, there's no need to be so formal with him. Miss Silverstein, are you feeling better now that you've taken down a huge project? Are you still mad? He asked with a smile. Meanwhile, she was secretly rejoicing. Thank goodness, we reconciled so quickly. Don't lie to me again. If you dare to do it, I won't ever forgive you, she warned. Having discovered her character, Nigel promised sincerely, I won't. With a light snort, Queenie riposted, who knows? After all, I'm not that important to you, and even without me, there'd still be many women eager to run into your arms. He embraced her with a stretch of his long arm and retaliated nervously, who said that? Besides you, I won't be interested in anyone else. Obediently leaning against his chest, she discovered that his heart was beating quicker than earlier. It was obvious that her words had frustrated him. All right, then. This matter is now over, so let's not mention it again. As Queenie snuggled in his embrace, she realized that she was overly enraged last night, which led her to overthink the situation. Would you like to come to my house for dinner tonight? I'll introduce my parents to you. Nigel decided to speed things up since he had not thoroughly considered it previously. He merely wanted to hide his relationship so that they could date in peace, but now, it seemed that he was wrong about that. Tonight? I'm nervous. Queenie immediately sat up. Are your parents nice to talk to? Of course. I'm sure they'll want me to marry you immediately after they meet you, he assured her with a smile. Hearing that, she blushed as she shrank her neck. What? No way. They have been pestering me to get married for a long time now, and they're worried I might not be able to find a wife. I didn't bring you back home before because I was afraid that they might scare you away with their enthusiasm. Queenie burst out laughing. How could they be worried about you not finding a wife? You're such an excellent person. After sighing, Nigel explained, maybe because I was waiting for you. Tears welled up in her eyes as she suddenly felt grateful to Bonnie for stealing Leslie. Otherwise, she would have missed an amazing man like Nigel because of the marriage her family had promised. However, she still felt that she was not fully prepared to meet his parents, so Nigel did not pressure her on that. Anyway, his parents would not arrange any more blind dates for him now that they knew he had a girlfriend. On the other hand, Brandon was also delighted by today's event. It was the first time he had landed such a large project with such ease. Moreover, he had just witnessed his daughter's confidence and thought that if he handed over the company to her, she would be able to make the right decisions and seize the chance to push the company to greater heights. As for Bonnie, Brandon only wished for her to have a happy and fulfilling life. When it was time for her to get married, he would prepare a significant amount of dowry for her so that she wouldn't have to worry about money for the rest of her life. However, Brandon was wrong, for Bonnie would not be satisfied with only a hefty dowry, wanting the entire Silverstein family inheritance instead. Even if she couldn't get it all, she had to have half of it. Originally, Nigel wanted to accompany Queenie for dinner, but he had a meeting coming up and had to return to the company. Therefore, the two parted and went on with their own businesses. Having gone through this jealous and angry occasion, the two now clearly understood their feelings and knew how much they loved each other. Nigel was driving toward his company when his phone rang, and when he looked, he saw that it was Elliot, whom he had not contacted for quite a while. Hey, Elliot. Aunt Brenda said you got a girlfriend. This isn't a joke, right? Elliot's deep voice sounded from the phone. Because Nigel had lied to them with this excuse many times, of course, they wouldn't believe him when he said he was seeing someone, which made him at a loss for what to say. I'm not lying. I really do have a girlfriend. I'll bring her to meet you guys later. At that moment, the cries of a young child came from the other end, followed by an incoherent voice. Daddy. Nigel immediately felt his heart soften. Hey. My little niece, your voice sounds so cute. She's such a clingy child. Elliot's voice was filled with affection as he said that. I'm so jealous. Elliot, I want a daughter that is as cute as Willie. While thinking of the last time he visited his niece, Nigel couldn't get the image of the chubby child with the smell of baby shampoo out of his mind. She was exceptionally cute, and he was so jealous that he was drooling. So, you'd better quicken your pace. Give birth to a younger sibling to play with Willow. After saying that, Elliot turned to his daughter and asked, How about it, Willow? Then there was more incoherent baby talk before Elliot's voice could be heard again. All right then, let's talk again later. I need to watch over my daughter. Elliot, don't tell me you're still working at home. Nigel asked, feeling curious. The last time he visited Elliot, he discovered that Elliot had basically moved his office back home, and the reason was simple. His cute and clingy niece couldn't leave her daddy. She would bawl her eyes out whenever she saw Elliot leave. Therefore, Elliot had been settling his work matters at home to take care of his daughter. Yes. For half a year, I won't be going to the company if there aren't any important matters and will be working at home. Willow is too clingy. When saying that, Elliot's voice was full of adoration and pride. All right then. I'll swing by to visit my two nephews someday and bring them out to play. Sure, and I'll be waiting for your good news. Elliot finished his words and hung up. Then, Nigel couldn't help but start imagining what his and Queenie's child would look like. Will my child look like me? As he thought of that, a smile appeared on his lips, which looked quite idiotic. At the Presgrave residence, under the sunset, a young boy happily played soccer on the grass patch when a chubby figure shakily walked over from the hall. At 1 year and 2 months, the child had dense, short hair that reached her ears. A slight breeze blew, messing up her hair a little, adding even more cuteness to her chubby and round face. Her small limbs that resembled lotus roots and round face were obvious signs that she was a chubby kid, but her big black eyes that looked like black grapes and her small nose and lips made her look as pretty as a doll. Jared, the child, was waving her small arms as she wobbly made her way toward her older brother, and behind her came a handsome and composed man in a casual shirt. His every move exuded a mighty temperament. The small and chubby child before him only reached his knees. "Daddy." The child wanted to head over and play with her brother and turned around to hug one of her daddy's legs, indicating that she wanted him to hug her. Elliot embraced his daughter and walked toward his son. The president of Presgrave Group had now become a responsible and professional stay-at-home dad. Ever since the birth of his daughter, he had been hands-on with everything, which left Anastasia with the sole task of feeding her. Also, after her pregnancy, Anastasia enjoyed working even more, so she let her husband take care of their daughter and began enjoying the happiness that working had brought her. After the birth of his children, Elliot's days were summarized into 2 things: work and pampering his daughter. As for Jared, he also doted on his younger sister a lot. The father-son duo's hobby had now become being at Willow's beck and call. At that moment, a red sports car drove in from outside, and the woman who came down from it had dense, long hair that was messed up by the wind. She then tidied up her hair and revealed an exquisitely beautiful face. Her face, which used to have a little baby fat, had now become smooth and sharp, adding an elegant and attractive feel to her whole figure. The 3 on the grass patch looked over at the same time. Whenever Elliot saw his wife, he felt his heart pounding, like during their first meeting. Meanwhile, the young child in his embrace had already stuck out her hands in excitement, asking for a hug from her mommy. However, Jared was the first to run over and hug his mommy's waist, and then he saw his daddy bringing his younger sister over. For Anastasia, the happiest thing after coming home from work was to have her family greet her. She first planted a kiss on her son's cheek before walking over to pull her daughter into her embrace. She planted 2 kisses on her daughter's small cheeks and felt Elliot's arms snake around her waist, pulling her into his embrace. When Anastasia raised her head, the man's thin lips chased after hers and planted a kiss on her lips. They had always restrained their affectionate actions when their children were around. "Sweetheart, welcome home." Elliot kissed her crown. Since Anastasia began working, she felt more relaxed compared to her hard-working husband, who had to look after their children at home. While lowering her head, she smiled and asked Willow, "Willow, were you well behaved today?" As if she could understand the question, the child scrunched her nose and pouted her small lips while acting coquettishly in her mommy's embrace by rubbing her head against her mommy's body. Elliot caressed his daughter's head and noticed that Anastasia was wearing high heels. Although Willow was only 1 year and 2 months old, she wasn't particularly light. She was already over 28 pounds and was a genuinely chubby baby. It was mainly because Willow could greatly absorb the nutrients from her nutritious diet, plus that Anastasia kept her daughter on breast milk until she turned 1 year old. As the sunset's rays shone down on the family of 4, they looked like a lovely family. At the dinner table in the Silverstein residence, Maggie had prepared a table full of delectable dishes, and Brandon had retrieved the wine he had kept for a few years and was reluctant to drink. Judging from her father's behavior, Bonnie could tell right after Brandon came home that he was in an excellent mood. However, this realization made her feel gloomy because her father's good mood must be related to Queenie. As she expected, a while after they began eating, Brandon told everyone about the important project they had landed today and praised Queenie along the way. "Queenie, you were so great today. You helped the company land a 1.5 billion project within one day. Hearing the compliment, Queenie smiled humbly. Dad, you don't have to be so worked up about this. Maggie was also surprised to hear that. Really? Queenie, you're such a capable person. You've already landed such a huge project right after joining the company. Meanwhile, Bonnie felt like she had suffered an invisible blow as she glared at Queenie, unable to hide the jealousy in her heart. No wonder Dad is so happy. So, she did make a huge contribution. Mom, it's a landscaping project under Mason Group, and our company just happened to have a landscaping construction service, so we decided to go for it, and Nigel agreed to let us have this project. Oh, you. Looking at you so angry last night scared me. I thought you guys were having a huge dispute. Who would have thought you two had worked it out after one night? Maggie criticized Queenie. Queenie also felt a little embarrassed about that. Mom, it wasn't my intention to throw such a huge tantrum. I was too caught up in my thoughts. You're amazing, Queenie. Besides our company, who else could the Manson Group give this project to? He's your boyfriend, after all. Bonnie made a snarky remark. You can't put it that way. Nigel's family is part of the business too, Maggie reminded her daughter. Queenie had also asked Nigel about this earlier that afternoon, but he insisted on giving it to Silverstein Enterprise. However, Queenie wasn't worried, for she had seen the company's landscape construction works and knew they could complete the Manson Group's project. After drinking 2 glasses of wine, Brandon accompanied Maggie out for a stroll. The servants had all gone home, and Queenie was in her dad's study, looking at the reports from work. Just then, Bonnie came into the study. Queenie, can you teach me how to read these reports? I want to learn how to manage the company too. If you want to learn how to manage a company, you should start with the basics before interning at the company. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you, Queenie suggested. However, Bonnie wasn't the learning type. She had stopped going to school after finishing junior high. Although she disguised herself to look like a rich young lady, she was someone without much knowledge. Not only did she hate going to school and taking exams, but she didn't even have the patience to read a book. She would rather spend time watching television shows and going shopping, indulging herself in her materialistic happiness. You aren't willing to teach me, are you, Queenie? You're afraid that I'd compete with you for Dad's company. She deliberately twisted Queenie's words. That's not what I mean. Queenie frowned. That's exactly what you mean. Bonnie sneered. Bonnie, this family will never restrict your food and clothing, but I hope that you can respect Dad's decision of who gets to manage the company. Dad will pick you, of course. To him, you're better and far more knowledgeable than me, but we're both Silverstein daughters, yet I'm the more pitiful one. Since young, I never had the chance to receive proper education, and my living conditions weren't as wealthy and prestigious as yours. Bonnie always used her childhood to belittle herself and evoke guilt in Queenie. Before this, Queenie would indeed feel guilty whenever she heard Bonnie devaluing herself and would feel sorry for Bonnie's unfortunate childhood. But now, Queenie was unfazed by it. I still have to go through these reports. Head back to your room, Queenie ordered. Queenie, I'm telling you this right now, it doesn't matter if you're the one managing the company or not, all of Dad's assets will be equally shared among us, Bonnie emphasized. In actuality, this was the reason she had come to look for Queenie. Hearing that, Queenie couldn't help but feel angry. The most important thing now is Dad's health. How could you think about splitting his assets? Subconsciously, Bonnie felt flustered. That's not what I meant. Bonnie Silverstein, you are a member of this family, so why don't you stop thinking about money every day and start paying attention to our aging parents, as well as the responsibilities we have to take up? Queenie felt bothered by Bonnie's earlier words. However, Bonnie couldn't share Queenie's sentiment. She didn't belong to this family, and there was no blood relation between her and the members of this family. More importantly, she just wanted to take everything without exerting any effort. "I won't bother you anymore, Queenie." After saying that, Bonnie turned around and left. When she returned to her room, the makeup on her face made her feel uncomfortable, so she decided to clean her face. Just as she was about to apply moisturizer to her face, she widened her eyes in shock upon noticing a small dent on her forehead. Though it wasn't very obvious, it was one of the after effects of her forehead filling. At once, she scanned her face from left to right, feeling flustered. How could there be a dent so soon? If Queenie sees this, she will certainly become suspicious. While clutching her chest, Bonnie decided she must undergo recovery surgery soon. She couldn't afford any flaws on her face, after all. She had no plans of telling Lisbeth about this either. Lisbeth was just an ignorant woman who didn't know anything, and Bonnie wanted to deal with this matter alone. Now that she had money, she could find a better plastic surgeon. With that, she gently pulled away the hair behind her ear. There was still an evident scar where she had removed her cartilage. This was also one of her darkest secrets she could never reveal to Queenie. Fortunately for Bonnie, she kept that spot hidden under her hair, which was why it hadn't been discovered yet. After letting out a breath, she looked at her face and thought, there cannot be anything wrong with this face. Meanwhile, Queenie kept working until 9:30 p.m. before she received a call from Nigel. When he heard that she was still working, he insisted that she shouldn't work after 10 o'clock p.m. and must head to bed. Queenie told him she still had a huge pile of reports to go through, and Nigel wished he could teleport there and help her. She promised to head to bed at 10 o'clock p.m. in the end, but he requested that she video call him in the name of supervising her. Having no choice, Queenie had to abide by his words. 20 minutes before 10 o'clock p.m., she took a shower and changed into her pajamas before sitting on the couch in her room and video calling Nigel. Nigel's handsome face still looked flawless on screen. He complained disappointedly, "Alas, I thought you'd wear your spaghetti strap pajama top. Turns out I was excited about nothing." While glaring at him through the screen, Queenie retorted, "What are you thinking? If you want to see me in straps, you have to let me look at your abs. Do you want to see them?" After saying that, he generously showed her his abdomen. Queenie blushed at that, but she nonetheless stared at them. It was finally the weekend, so Queenie could peacefully sleep in the next morning. Last night, she chatted with Nigel and lost all sense of sleepiness. Thus, she stayed awake until 1 o'clock a.m. before falling asleep. Hence, she left a note on her door, notifying the others that she would skip breakfast. In the meantime, at the dining table, Bonnie had woken up bright and early. Suddenly, she voiced her request to her parents. "Dad and Mom, I want to go on vacation to Hogland for a while. I've asked a friend to accompany me there. I just want to take a break and have some fun." Bonnie spoke up while she instinctively touched her forehead. Even though she had used a heavy layer of concealer to cover the dent, she was still feeling nervous about it. "Why do you suddenly want to head to Hogland? Do you have any friends there?" Maggie was still worried. After all, her younger daughter had been away from home for a long time, and she was worried that something might happen to Bonnie if she went away on holiday. "Don't worry, Mum. My friend is very familiar with that place, so there's nothing to worry about. It's just that I've been feeling bored lately, and I want to have a short break," Bonnie said with a serious expression before she continued aggrievedly, "I didn't have much money back then, so I never went abroad. Now that I've finally found my family, I have to go outside and experience life." The Silverstein parents looked at each other before Maggie nodded resignedly. "Fine, but you have to keep in contact with us and tell us that you're safe every day, understand?" "Of course. Thank you, Dad and Mom, but there's something else." While biting her lips, she rubbed her fingers together. "I'm a little short of money lately, so could you guys lend me some money first? Brandon said with a chuckle, sure thing. I have a card with $2 million inside. Take it with you just in case. Thank you, Dad. You're the best. Bonnie was elated. With that amount of money, she could afford the fees for her plastic surgery at a better hospital. She could now rest assured. When are you leaving? Maggie couldn't help but ask. I'll be going next week. I have to pack my luggage first. Bonnie still needed to do her research since she had done her previous plastic surgery in the country. She only did some detailed work since her face resembled Queenie's to begin with, but she didn't expect the effects to wear off so quickly and become dented after only a short while. That's good, you still have some time. That way, you can have a good rest at home before leaving. Maggie still hoped that Bonnie wouldn't leave so soon. That afternoon, the Silverstein parents went to visit their friend, and Bonnie was feeling very bored at home. At that moment, Queenie woke up and exited her room to head downstairs to eat. Noticing how the door to Queenie's bedroom was slightly ajar, Bonnie felt tempted and gently pushed the door open before heading inside. She enjoyed looking through Queenie's things back then and could take whatever she wanted. But now, she wanted to see how many good things Queenie had received, such as jewels and bags. Even though she couldn't take them, she could still look around and try them on. She was surprised when she saw Queenie's phone on the bed. She subconsciously went over to pick it up, and the phone suddenly unlocked despite needing facial recognition. Bonnie widened her eyes, feeling delighted. What's up with this? Did I just unlock Queenie's phone with my face? Once she unlocked Queenie's phone, Bonnie flipped through the woman's messages and saw her and Nigel's chat history. Then, a vicious thought emerged in her mind. If I ask Nigel out to a hotel in the middle of the night, would I be able to sleep with him with the lights on? If this happens, it wouldn't matter if Nigel hates me, for Queenie will never accept him after finding out that he slept with me. With that thought in mind, Bonnie immediately decided to carry out that plan. It was still early morning, and she needed to get Nigel out tonight. Also, since she could use her face to unlock Queenie's phone, it would be very easy for her to execute her plan. After coming out of Queenie's room, Bonnie returned to her room and began to think about the details of her plan. She would soon be heading abroad to have plastic surgery and would be staying there for at least 3 months. Therefore, she had to go ahead with this plan to make sure Queenie and Nigel broke up before she went abroad. Meanwhile, Queenie finished her breakfast and went upstairs. She had forgotten her phone in her room, so she went to retrieve it before heading to Brandon's study. Even though it was the weekend, she still considered it as time for her to study, so she couldn't be lazy. On the other hand, Bonnie went to a shopping mall outside. Now that she had become the second lady of the Silverstein family, she stopped contacting the friends she had before as she was afraid that they would recognize her. Whenever she went out, she would use the money she got from the Silversteins to shop to her heart's content and satisfy her materialistic needs. Today, she was shopping at a mall when she was suddenly met with a young woman hugging a middle-aged man's arm at the entrance of the mall. The young woman's eyes instantly lit up when she saw all the luxury items inside the shopping mall, and she began excitedly telling the man that she wanted to pick out a few items. Though the man looked a little reluctant, he still agreed. After that, the young woman began selecting the items she wanted. When she saw the woman who was in the middle of trying on a pair of shoes, she immediately called out, "Nina Lindsay? It is you." Bonnie looked up at the young woman in shock and instantly recognized the young woman as one of her colleagues and friends whom she had worked with for 4 to 5 years. Quickly changing back into her shoes, Bonnie rose to her feet in a fluster and denied, "You've gotten the wrong person. I'm not Nina Lindsay. Stop pretending. Even if you've gotten plastic surgery, I can still recognize you at a glance. We used to be good friends, so you wouldn't hide from me, would you?" The young woman grabbed Bonnie's arm and looked at her sharply. When everyone said you disappeared, I thought something happened to you and was even worried about you, but it seems like you've been living a good life." Seeing that she couldn't keep up the act, Bonnie struggled to get out of the woman's grip and replied, "Yes. I have my own life now, so I've forgotten everything from before." "Where did you get so much money? Why didn't you tell us and share the fortune?" While eyeing Bonnie's clothes, accessories, and bag, the young woman couldn't help but feel envious of Bonnie as she admired her. Women with backgrounds like theirs would be considered very fortunate to get to where Bonnie was, so she wanted Bonnie to help her as well. However, Bonnie's face fell as she rejected, "The people and things from before have nothing to do with me anymore, so don't ever look for me again." "Hey, Nina, that's so merciless of you. Have you forgotten that I still have photos and videos of you and Mr. Wilson? Don't think you can get rid of me so easily. You shouldn't forget about others after you've gotten rich." The young woman wasn't an easy person to deal with either. The moment she recognized Bonnie, she knew she had to get something from her, and the things she had inside her phone were her leverage. "You," Bonnie's face paled as she called out the young woman's name, "Danielle Cosimo, how dare you threaten me?"
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.